They're by far the most commonly faced foe of any Pokemon adventure, yet we barely even register them as an actual foe. Wild Pokemon. Maybe in the old days you'd occasionally spend some time grinding against the untamed mons, but especially in the modern era, the entire purpose of a wild Pokemon is to be caught. Or not. Which means that usually wild Pokemon are a good deal behind the level curve of trainers in the same area, with the gap only widening as the story progresses. At least, that is the case most of the time. There are some wild Pokemon out there who want none to do with terms like level curves and appropriate power. No, they ignore that completely and do their own thing, leading to wild Pokemon that are either due to actual level or power level way above the actual power curve of the game, i.e. they are overpowered. And let's get started with by far the most famous example, just in case it's still a little unclear what I mean. Surely I don't have to tell you guys what to do when you're doing a playthrough of either the Gen 1 games or Fire Red and Leaf Green and your current team struggles to beat Lieutenant Surge for whatever reason. As if Game Freak knew you might struggle, right next door to Vermilion City is Diglett's Cave, where it's impossible to find a Pokemon that doesn't hit super effective against Surge's electric types, cause all you can find here are Diglett and Dugtrio. While plenty of areas in the Pokemon world have no problem housing evolved Pokemon with a level below what should technically be possible, Diglett Cave is not one of them. Not even remotely. And since Diglett evolves at level 26, the Dugtrio of Diglett's Cave can be found at both level 29 and level 30. Sure, they're rare and they only have a 5% chance of showing up, but your reward for finding them is a Pokemon that just destroys the normal power curve of Kanto. Lieutenant Surge's strongest Pokemon is his Raichu at level 24. 24! That is 6 levels below what the Dugtrio can be, and then we haven't even accounted for its type advantage yet. Hell, this Dugtrio isn't even ahead of just Lieutenant Surge, it's ahead of Erica too. Her Vileplume is level 29, still a level lower than the strongest Dugtrio of Diglett's Cave, and it's available much earlier. You could literally not train it at all, and it should still be able to do a job in Celadon City, that's crazy. Unfortunately, for reasons unknown, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee changed this to the point that Dugtrio is now at the same level as the Diglett and Zubat of the cave, which is between level 13 and 18. Kids these days won't know how much of a monster this guy used to be. It's probably the best and clearest example of an overpowered wild Pokemon compared to where the level curve is then currently at. But it's far from the only one. In fact, modern Pokemon games have made overleveled wild Pokemon a core mechanic. Ever since Sword and Shield's wild area, there have been Pokemon that are clearly too strong for any beginning trainer roaming around the weaklings. And while I obviously won't talk about all of them, especially since it's not even necessarily set in stone which ones you will encounter, I do want to highlight the scripted first of its kind. The Onix of Rolling Fields. Everyone who arrives at the meetup spot at the start of the wild area is greeted by this wandering Onix, which many veterans may have believed to be an easy pushover, since most of us are probably familiar with the fact that despite looking threatening, Onix is stat-wise pretty weak. Only to discover this Onix is level 26, which is about 16 levels higher than the normal wild Pokemon of Rolling Fields and around the level of Kabu's gym. Let me remind you, that is the third gym leader, while this Onix appears before you've even met the first. Now, obviously the idea here isn't that Onix is catchable like Dugtrio and you can steamroll the opposition with it. It's rather to teach you that some Pokemon in the wild area are actually seriously strong, and it definitely delivers in that aspect. I like to think that Onix was specifically picked for this task as a reference to Gen 1, where it also kinda served as the first boss of the game, being Brock's ace and all. Either way, it's definitely not the same as the other Pokemon in this video, seeing as you can't catch it at the moment where it's overpowered, but I figured I'd mention it anyway. Like I said in my introduction though, levels are not the only thing that can make a Pokemon overpowered. It's also possible to be level appropriate, yet be such a powerful Pokemon stat-wise that you still kinda screw with the natural power curve. A simple yet boring example are the event Pokemon of BDSP, where you can obtain Jirachi and Mew if you have save data for Sword and Shield and Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee as soon as you set foot in Floaroma Town, which is super early in the game to be handed to Mythicals. Now, seeing as they're Mythicals, Mew and Jirachi are not that strong compared to say an early box legendary would be, but they're still a lot better than the Shinx and the Starly you've been dragging along until then. But you know, those are boring examples I'd say, and they're technically not even wild Pokemon either, so they shouldn't even really count. The concept itself is also seen in the wild though, like in the Alola games. Sure, it is exceptionally rare, we're talking less than 1% here, but it is possible to catch a Salamence as early as Route 3 in this game. Level-wise, it won't look too out of place, it will be around level 10, like all the wild Pokemon here, but obviously the power level of a Salamence is leagues beyond the Spearow and Yungoos that also live here. Again though, the chances are not big. First of all, you can only find it in one particular patch of grass, and you need to find a Bagon, which has a 1% chance of showing up. Then it has to be an SOS battle, at which point you then have to wait and be patient until Bagon calls for its big brother or parent, Salamence. And then you obviously need to find a way to weaken it with your beginning team and juke it out with its catch rate of 11%, which is definitely not too bad, but since this is the super early game, you probably won't have an unlimited supply of Pokeballs, so you can't be too unlucky or you have to do the whole thing over again. But if you do succeed, congratulations, you now have obtained a fully evolved pseudo-legendary Pokemon before you have even done the first trial. You can do this later with other powerful Mon as well, like Dragonite for example, but none come as early as Salamence. And while no other game has an example this extreme either, there are more regions that give you access to powerful Pokemon early on, especially when it concerns Pokemon that don't evolve. In the Johto games, remakes included, you get the TM for Headbutt in Ilex Forest, which is between the 2nd and 3rd gym of course. Using this, you can go back to Azalea Town or the route just before it, Route 29, to get yourself a Heracross if you're lucky enough. It's not a nightmare to get, it has a 30% chance of appearing, as long as the Pokemon actually shows up of course, and if you do manage to get it, you've got your hands on a Pokemon with a very nice 500 base stat total. For reference, that's the same BST as Ampharos, which at this point in time is probably still a little Mareep on your team. It's definitely no Salamence, but so early in the game, this is a very strong Pokemon, definitely ahead of the average power curve, ahead of Miltank even. Another 500 BST Pokemon that can be obtained even earlier is Flamigo in Scarlet and Violet. Now, a lot of Pokemon in Paldea can be obtained whenever you want, because, you know, open world and all, but even keeping that in mind, Flamigo is still extraordinarily early. After all, the game doesn't really open up until after you visited the Academy in Mesagosa and begin your free storylines, but you can get Flamigo before your home is even out of sight. You head down Poco Path, where the very first wild Pokemon of the game are, and take a right once you've entered South Province Area 1 and can encounter Flamigo, which are level-wise nothing special, but they too have a BST of 500 and a very good moveset to boot. Flamigo is stronger than the fully evolved forms of several Pokemon that live on this same route, so from a power level perspective, picking one up here gives you a massive advantage super early in the game. You're not even close to the first gym yet at this point. Now, so far we've mostly been talking about early game Mon, which makes sense of course, the lower the level curve the more an overpowered Pokemon can break it, but this phenomenon is not exclusive to the early game. A good example of this occurs in Emerald. Due to this game's box legendary being Rayquaza, the Pokemon you catch during the climax of the story in Sootopolis City was changed from Groudon or Kyogre to sending you to Sky Pillar to come pick up Rayquaza instead. However, its level wasn't altered from the first two games, meaning that this Rayquaza is level 70, which is more than 20 levels ahead of the level curve at this point. And I'm not just talking about your own Pokemon here, there is not a single Pokemon found in the Hoenn Pokemon League that is stronger than this Rayquaza the moment you catch it. Hell, Wallace's ace, Milotic, doesn't even crack level 60, and yet this Rayquaza is at 70, it's so far ahead. Of course, unlike the Ductrio and the Heracross of the world, this is meant to reflect how Rayquaza is super powerful, but that doesn't change the fact that compared to the endgame level curve of Emerald, it's streets ahead. From this angle though, so purely the levels from a number perspective, no game out there is beating the Sinnoh games. They have not one but two of these cases, both in the late game, hell even the post game. The first, which is very much a repeat of the Rayquaza example, albeit slightly less shocking, due to, like I said, this being the post game, is Arceus. You could make the argument that the post game doesn't have a level curve, but I wouldn't entirely agree. The Sinnoh games especially have a clear post-game area to go through, the Battle Zone, and that comes with a certain level expectation. And that is certainly one Arceus is far ahead of. The moment you have become champion, you can catch Arceus at the Hall of Origin, provided you have the Azure Flute at level 80, which is 14 levels higher than Cynthia's strongest Pokemon, despite you being able to fight Arceus mere minutes after defeating her. And then you have to keep in mind that Cynthia is generally speaking stronger than most trainers in the Battle Zone, meaning that this Arceus is roughly 30 levels ahead of most trainers you have left to fight, a ridiculously high amount. Obviously, it is fitting of a Pokemon of Arceus standing, but that doesn't change the fact that while there is not much of the game to go, Arceus is more than strong enough to trivialize it completely. That same fact doesn't apply to the other outlier, Magikarp. In Platinum's resort area, you can use a Super Rod to catch Magikarp ranging in level from 1 to 100, which might be roughly 50 levels ahead of the average level curve at this point. And yet, it's not really a problem, because even a level 100 Magikarp won't do too much damage. What you really want is a level 99 Magikarp, so you can still evolve it and get a level 100 Gyarados. But at that point, you haven't really caught it in the wild, not the Gyarados at least, so I don't think it should count. I did want to mention it though, because being 50 levels ahead of the level curve is ridiculous. You won't find that big a numeral gap anywhere else. Now, you may also be familiar with a similar situation in Black and White 2, where you can find Gyarados in the wild at the same levels within the nature preserve. This would then obviously count, since you can now find the Gyarados in the wild, but now there is another problem. I think you can make the argument that while this Gyarados is obviously very strong, there is not really a level curve to compare it to anymore. In order to access the nature preserve, you need to have seen every Pokemon in the game's Univadex, which you can technically do before the post-game areas, but I don't think you're likely to do so at all. This is not the same as Arceus, where it's pretty believable you might do this before the battle zone. And so, while level 100 Gyarados could have been one of the most overpowered Pokemon ever, the lack of a clear level curve disqualifies it for me. Which of these overpowered beasts have you used? And did I forget any? Share it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing. And if you really want to support me, you can now become a channel member to get all kinds of fun perks and help me keep bringing these videos to your doorstep every week. For now, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.